All right. Hi, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you again for joining our webinar on Cisco Sourcefire Security for Advanced Attack Protection. If you have any questions throughout this webinar, go ahead and type them into the questions panel. Everybody's muted as they came in. We're going to do our best to have our panelists answer the questions in that panel or live. Today we have Bill OMalley joining us from Cisco Sourcefire, as well as Mike Gleason, who's a partner with Netrix. Bill's going to give us an overview of Sourcefire's next generation IPS, firewall, and advanced malware protection products. But first we're going to start things off by having Mike give us a quick overview of Netrix and how we work with Cisco. Mike?
Thanks, Blair. Appreciate it. Appreciate everybody jumping on the call today. I just want to take a couple quick slides, and then we'll get directly into Bill's presentation for those of you that don't know much about Netrix. So if you can go to the next slide. Thanks, Blair. So who is Netrix? Netrix is a solution provider that works with our clients by aligning their business goals to their strategy on how they want to consume, support, and finance their IT. So what does that mean, consume, support, and finance their IT? Well, if you use Cisco Sourcefire, for example, whether you want the product deployed on site, whether you want to put it in the cloud, whether you want to attach Netrix managed services to us, you tell us how you want to consume, support, finance your IT initiatives, and we'll provide a strategy as well as a solution behind it. We are a Cisco Gold partner. We've been working with Cisco for many, many years, and we're certified across all their different platforms, not just security. Our concentration is in a lot of different areas, obviously security, working closely with Cisco Sourcefire, unified communications, mobility, to say a few. And then we do have 6 offices across the U.S. We're based out of Bannockburn in Illinois. We have 200 employees, and a little over half of our employees are all technical deployable field resources. So here we have our 10 pillars of services, and these are our go-to-market services we work with our clients on an everyday basis. So whether it's relocation and build-out services, if your organization's moving corporate headquarters, looking for a strategy, a migration, or deploying new data centers and designs, we can help you there. System services, desktop servers, network infrastructure, route switch wireless, mobility, BYOD, MDM, full suite of security services, collaboration, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud. Managed services, we have a very large state-of-the-art NOC out in Bannockburn. We manage our clients' national and global networks every 24/7, 365. Cloud center solutions, we have a wide offering of public as well as private cloud solutions. Online services, and then we wrap it up with our application development and website development group. So you could say, okay, how does Netrix work with Cisco? Well, we've been working with Cisco for well over 13 years. Our staff has over 25 years of experience implementing Cisco solutions, and we've been selling Cisco all the way back since 1988. Netrix has really built its name around the country on our engineering execution. We have over 100+ engineers serving our clients daily, and if you look at the organization as a whole, 100 people hold some form of Cisco certification within our organization. A lot of times what differentiates Cisco partners is their specializations. Some partners only specialize in a few areas. Luckily, Netrix has a broad suite of services and specialize within Cisco services across the board. So whether it's security, collaboration, data center, video, voice, you name it, Netrix can help you with any solution moving forward. If you need additional information on any of these services or you're looking to get together with Netrix, please reach out to your account manager, and we're more than happy to go into more of our services, but we really want to focus today on a relationship with Cisco Sourcefire and how Sourcefire can help an organization like yours become secure. So, Bill?
Sorry, Blair unmuted me. Actually, I'll grab the ball if you're ready for me, Mike. There we go.
Yeah, I'm just passing it over now.
Okay.
All yours.
Yeah, wonderful. You share my desktop. Let me know when you can see it.
Yep, we got it.
Okay. First off, I'll introduce myself. As Blair pointed out, my name is Bill OMalley, not Greg Bussey, as this slide shows, but Greg is the somewhat local channel manager for the security appliances and security services offered by Cisco and formerly Sourcefire. And that's actually where I come from. I was with Sourcefire for a couple of years prior to being brought into Cisco. But even before that, I was a customer. So I was a customer basically like you. Cisco and Sourcefire customer for Sourcefire for over 8 years, and Cisco for even more than that. And so I know security is a big thing. Security's been my thing for quite a while. But briefly, I'll go over through some slides. I know most of you probably don't want to see PowerPoint slides. It can be somewhat boring. Hopefully these won't be. There's some good information in these. But as Blair pointed out, if you've got any questions, by all means ask, and we'll be more than happy to help you out. When we look at the security problems that we see today, we see, of course, just like you, I'm sure, have, you've got, you're working more with cloud, those cloud vendors out there. You've got users bringing in their own devices, and you've got those basically what we call those changing business models. People bringing in their own things, but we also have those known attackers, so known and unknown for that matter. They're getting better, and of course, because the money is a big thing for them. So, of course, their products and their malware and their attacks are becoming harder to identify, and that's basically where we come into play. So when we're talking about that complexity and fragmentation, so they might have attacks that come in one way, but they have something else that's feeding it, especially if you're targeted. So with our products, we put all those together. So we're looking at your environments constantly. So if there's a change, we're going to see something. If one malware comes in, or even if it's an unknown piece of software comes in, we're going to identify that. We're going to see that over time. So if it changes from not knowing what the disposition is, if it changes from that unknown to now we see that this is malware, we're going to identify it on your network. We're going to at least give you the ability to block it on your network, on the endpoint, and tell you where else it's been within your environment. So we talk about what we call the attack continuum. We offer products and services around what we could call that full attack continuum, that before, during, and after. When we talk about before, we're talking, those firewalls, those VPNs, next-gen firewalls, that, the whole better together story is great because, Sourcefire was able to help a little bit in that. We had, of course, our next-gen firewall, which is a great product, but implemented with Cisco's. You've got that great VPN. You've got that hardened firewall that's been out there for a long time. But bringing in our products as well, especially for that before and during, when we're talking about that next-gen IPS, it's, I think, a great marriage between the companies. And, of course, the after, when we're talking being able to scope, contain, remediate, because it used to be those that are going to be attacked or those that are currently attacked and under control from someone else to those that are, eventually going to be. And anymore today, it's those that know that they've been compromised and those that, have been compromised, they just don't know it yet. So we're here to help in all those respects. So we talk about customers, and these are not numbers that Sourcefire or Cisco has come up with. We're grabbing these numbers out of like the Verizon Data Breach Report. So, and I know this is almost spot on for the past couple of places where I work, and me as well, not just all the users, but online video. We've seen these percentages of people, where they're going. They're doing their social networking, of course, advertisements. I'm surprised it's only 13%, but this is where, they're visiting while they're, either within your environment or even at home. They're hitting all these kind of things. And really, what does that matter? Well, it's actually quite important because those search engines, as you can see here, 27 times more likely to deliver those malicious content, more so than the counterfeit software that people used to download. Of course, those are still kind of, you want to be leery of that, but search engines, you're just searching for anything for that matter. You got 27% times more likely downloading malware because of that. Same with online advertisements versus, in this case, where they're talking about pornography, 182 times more likely to deliver malicious content. And that's online advertising. I mean, you see that with every page, every Google hit, pretty much everything that you're searching for, as well as those online shopping. And they're, again, comparing that to counterfeit software. So basically, and we talk about that impact of a breach. I mean, when there is a breach, typically that attacker is getting what they need within hours. So, here again, it's showing like 60% of the data breaches. They get their stuff, they get the data, what they need, or if they want, what they can resell relatively quick. And they're showing that 54% of breaches are undiscovered for months. And you'll see going forward, probably the next slide, it's not just 2-3 months. It's closer to a year or more. So we talked about that point-in-time software, that point-in-time malware detection. Sure, it's good to have point-in-time, look at those files that are coming across the network, but without looking at the files constantly, being able to understand where those files are, because really there's no product out there that's that silver bullet that's going to say that we can protect you from every single malware that's coming in. Because there's files that, especially if you're being a targeted attack, things are built, malware is built primarily to get through your defenses. And there might be those products or those that software, that malware file that no one's seen before. So it's hard to understand. I mean, sure, you can have those sandboxes, and we do sandboxing as well. So that's a point in time. But we're looking at that file constantly, and I'll show you that as we're going through the demo. So if we see that disposition change, 2 hours, 2 days, 2 weeks down the road, now it's starting to act malicious, or kind of that behavior that you don't want to see in your network, we're going to be able to pinpoint it where it is within your environment and help protect against it. So and actually build this slide out, kind of what I was saying. According to US CERT, the average time for a breach being detected, it's over a year, 486 days. And the slide back, we don't like to pick on target, but they had the ability, and actually they saw all of the attacks and what was happening with that last thing that was on the news not too long ago. But they had so much data, it was hard for them to filter in what they really needed to focus on. And that's something that Sourcefire and now Cisco has the ability and has been doing from day one. And that is what I want to, hopefully will reflect that in my demo, because that was a huge time saver for me, I know, as a customer. To build this out real quick, just we talk about the agile security, not just the attack continuum, what we talked about before, but our ability, Sourcefire's ability to what we call agile here again, 4 steps: see, learn, adapt, and learn. So this is not just a point in time, this is a continuous thing. Constantly looking at your network, we're able to see those devices, see those operating systems, see those applications, and be able to understand what threats that could basically learn what threats that could exist on those operating systems, those applications, that network, and be able to adapt your network or at least your rules that you have in place to protect against everything. And when it says act, David, when we see an attack, because we know that you're vulnerable to it, because we see that operating system at that certain version, we know what those are vulnerable to, we can act basically immediately to make sure that you are fully protected. We talk about that power of continuous analysis, and this is my channel manager loves this slide because it brings it home for him. Because yeah, we or any other product out there might see that point in time, might see like when you're going through a PSA security site, it's going to see, here we see that pen, we see a cigarette case, which probably you don't see very often these days. You can see a lighter. And that's what that point in time is kind of looking at that. Okay, we see these pieces, and it doesn't mean anything to us. But over time, we're going to see, oh, somehow all of these are working together. We're going to be able to see that and be able to put those together to understand, okay, we might see this one thing come in, we might see a cufflink, might see a lighter, but once they're all put together, something a little bit more deadly, something that you don't want necessarily within your environment. The Sourcefire has a wide range of hardware, not just, we also have virtual machines. So we're not just that next-gen IPS, we also do next-gen firewall, so your application detection, as well as advanced malware protection. We'll get into that as well, both on the network as well as the endpoint. You can either have them both working together or you have the endpoint product working separately. So we have what we call Firesight. So we've got a management appliance. There again, it can be virtual or it can be hardware-based. And we've got what we call Firepower Appliances. And these are those 50 meg up to 60 gig worth of inspection appliances. And 60 gig is quite large, especially when you're looking at IPS. So you can either turn on one or all of these products. So you can have that next-gen IPS or just a next-gen firewall within this appliance. Or you can turn on, this is all license-based, turn on that advanced malware protection on the network. And because, as I mentioned before, that contextual awareness, we're constantly looking at the network, we're constantly looking to see what's passing through to understand what your environment looks like so we can properly identify the right rules, the right protections to put in place. And FireAmp, I mentioned this before, not only can we protect that advanced malware protection within the network, as well as any of these other items, we also have that host-based, what we call FireAmp. We'll do a real quick demo on that as well so you can understand how we can protect, how you can have that one interface to understand what's going on in each of your endpoints. And what we call our collective security intelligence, this is our VRT. If you're familiar with Sourcefire, the vulnerability research team, very similar to Cisco's SIO, and actually they're all working together now in one group. They're understanding those threats. Excuse me. They're seeing what's going on. You know what the attacks, the newest flavor of the day per se, and to see what's out there and to be able to understand what those threats are, if they're going to harm any of our customers, to make sure that you are fully protected. And here's what I mentioned before. This is just a real brief overview of the appliances that we have. Half-width appliances, 50 meg on up to 250 meg on up to our 60 gig appliance. And you can also do a growing kind of thing. So if you have a need for either a 10 or 15 gig appliance today, instead of having to, 3-4 years down the road, replace it with something that's maybe a 20 or 60 gig appliance, you can basically just stack these. So in case like this 8200 series, the lower end, a 10 gig box. 2 years down the road, you need a 20 gig box. Basically just need another appliance and a stacking kit, and you've got that full 20 gig worth of inspection. And this is what I mentioned, our VRT, the ability to look at those SAN nets, the file samples that we look at daily, over 180,000, actually I think it's over 200,000 samples per day, and these are individual samples of malware that they're looking at. That FireAmp community, all sorts of places. And if you're familiar with Smart or ClamAV, it's our VRT. They're the ones that manage those open source products. Very good products, and they're very well known. Real quick here, I don't know if you're familiar with NSS Labs. Very similar to Gartner. I would have shown a Gartner thing on here, but I don't believe they have a data breach report as of yet for this year. NSS Labs they do a great job. They get the products in. No one pays to have these things. Very similar to Gartner, but they do their deep down testing. They do it, out of the box. How does the product perform? As well as tune. They'll have an engineer from each company tune their product, and they'll do their testing on that, and they'll show basically what it is, percentages of what they've caught, as well as what it is, dollar per megabit of inspection and protection. You'll see Sourcefire. This just came out a couple months ago, 3-4 months ago. Sourcefire, and now Cisco, is the leader in that. Very similar to Gartner. Since I think 2006, we've been in the upper right-hand corner of Gartner's report for IPS. Very well known as far as IPS goes. The term next-gen IPS came about because the way Sourcefire looks at the files and looks at the traffic is a constant learning, constant looking at your traffic, your environment. It's not that point in time. I'm going to jump out here, jump over to the demo. Hopefully everyone can see this. Let me know if you can see this, Blair. I just jumped over to a different screen.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. And this is what we were talking about. We were talking about network visibility. And this is our management software. This is what we call our defense center. So everything is managed in one location. Or actually, I think they call it Firesite now. As an old customer, we used to call it, or they used to call it the defense center, and I hear that slip out of me more often than not. I like to start on this page because this kind of gives a whole one-page overview of everything that we can see and everything that we can do for protect our customers. As I mentioned, we're looking at your traffic. We're looking at it constantly. We're looking at it passively, so it's not that point in time. And that's what we're showing up here in this top bar. As you can see, I'm just looking at the past hour. So first, we can always drill into it more, look at 6 hours one day when we on up to however much traffic that you're logging. And we can hover over it. And we see the events that happen per any time within the day, and the traffic that's happening at that time. So at least you can see what's happening, that you do have a healthy network, or at least the traffic is passing through the sensors. And actually, I should mention this defense center, or this Fireside management center. It can manage either one sensor or multiple sensors on up to over 100, depending on the size of the defense center that you get. So it's great one place to look at your network and the threats and what's going on. So scroll through this, and just so if you have any questions, by all means, you can probably type it in the bar or ask. Because we're looking at your network, we're able to understand the operating systems, and I think that's key, not just operating systems, but even more than that, and I'll show you that here going forward. But not only the Windows Phone and the versions, different versions of Linux, because as we all know, all versions of Linux or all versions of any operating system for that matter, they all have different vulnerabilities, and we want to make sure that we understand what's on your network so we can properly implement or recommend that you put in the right rules to make sure that those are fully protected. So we can also identify by source and user, as we do work with Active Directory, so at least we can place a name with a certain event that we might see. Not only operating systems, but applications as well. Just like operating systems, those applications have vulnerabilities. We want to make sure that we understand what's on the network to make sure that we fully protect you. So we're looking at not just your application protocol, but we're looking at your client applications as well as web applications. And each one of these, I mean, like in this case, and this is all demoware, but we're running Firefox, but it could be any version of Firefox. Just like any one of these pie graphs on this one page, you can drill into all of this. You can filter it out so you don't want to see it. You can drill into it for more analysis so you can understand what versions are out there and who's using what versions of different operating, or different, not just operating systems, but applications. So if you only want the newest version of Firefox within your environment, at least you can see who's running the older versions. Or you can write a rule and say, I'm not going to allow those older versions. Scrolling on down, we have what we call security intelligence. It was relatively a new interface here. I mean, we've always done this, but we've never given a great visibility into it. Now you can see who within your environment is talking to those known spam sites, those known botnets, who's talking to those known command and control servers. And these are groups of IPs that our vulnerability research team, our VRT, as well as Cisco's SIO, they're adding to this. So if we see, understand IP addresses of, single IP addresses, subnets that are known bad malicious sites, we're adding those to the profile. So if it changes day over day, but we're changing and growing those IPs, and also removing them, because if we don't see a command and control server from a certain IP address within X amount of time, we're going to remove that. So you don't have those false positives. We also do deal, because a lot of times you'll see the sensors placed on the egress side, not just in the data center. So we're understanding the traffic that's going to and from those certain country codes. So because we see it, we can also write a rule to block it if we need to. So you can see intrusion events coming from other countries, as well as just by initiated countries. So if you've got traffic going to or from, I'm just going to use Russian Federation as an example. You don't want any of your users going to that, any sites or any traffic going to a certain country, by all means, you can certainly block that as well. And there again, we also have URL information, because there again, a lot of times at the edge to the egress point, we can understand the traffic, not just the country codes, but also the URL information by single URL, by category, and by reputation. So because we see it, we can also write rules against it, make sure that they're blocked or logged anyway. And file information. Regardless if you've got the advanced malware protection license on your appliance or not, we're still going to look at those files. So we're going to see those MS executables. We're going to see those torrent files. We're going to see those zip files. So if you've got a policy in place, and this is the way it was when I was a customer, no zip files can be sent through email or no executables. So if I wanted to send a zip file to someone, I would just change the extension from .zip to .txt, attach it to the email, and it went just fine. Because the person managing that was basically the Exchange server, and didn't understand really what that file was. This was a few years back. Of course, we're not going to do that. We're not going to look at just that extension. We're looking at that file and that integrity itself. We're going to be able to block it if need be, if that policy says to. But also, when we talk about malware, So not only are we looking at files regardless of what license you have, but if you've got that malware license, we're going to look at that file. We're going to tell you three things. We're going to tell you if it's a known good file, if we've seen it before, it never caused any kind of malicious activity. We're going to tell you if it's malware, if we've seen this before, or if we've seen that it's causing some sort of malicious activity anywhere in our customers or within your environment, and give you the ability to block it on the network, as well as those files where the disposition is unknown. In this case, I think that, yeah, unknown. We call that typically neutral file. So if we've never seen it before, if no one else has seen this before, and we don't take that full file and send it up to our cloud for analysis, and of course you can, we're taking that a fingerprint of it, so it's just a SHA-256 to compare it with the database. If you want to send a file to our analysis team, by all means you can do that as well, but a customer by customer basis, it all depends on what the customer wants to do. But if we see that file changes from that unknown or that neutral state to, okay, 2 days or 2 weeks down the road, we see, oh, now we see that this is behaving maliciously. Didn't see it before, it wasn't caught in the sandbox, but now that we see it, we're going to show you where it is within your environment, with the ability to block it on the network, or if you have the endpoint product, to be able to eradicate it off the system from the endpoint product. As well as intrusion information, and this is the huge thing for me as a customer. The last place I worked was a rather large e-commerce environment, and I use a couple before even though I tried to get Sourcefire in there, they had something prior to that, as well as Snort. And Snort, of course, that's something that we manage, but it is open source, and you don't get all the nice widgets that we get with the enterprise products. We're looking at files by priority. You got those low, mediums, and highs. I would spend, you can see here in the last hour, I would spend majority of my time looking at those high priority events. In this case, there's only 246, but every hour you get 200, 300, 400 more. It tends to take up a lot of time. And a lot of times those high priority events might be that, like that IIS buffer overflow that's targeting an Apache web server. I'm protected by default because that IIS buffer overflow attack is never going to be successful targeting an Apache web server. As opposed to the way Sourcefire also looked at it, and this is what was big for me, is what we call impact flags. In this case, you can see in the last hour, 15 impact ones. Impact ones, and I'll go over briefly what each one of these means, but impact one is the main reason for me wanting to implement Sourcefire. It's because these are the ones that are impactful to my network. These are the ones that I'm vulnerable to. So here's that IIS buffer overflow that's attacking that IIS web server that someone plugged into my DMZ that I didn't know about. The system saw that there's a new product there, a new server out there, identified it, and said, hey, you got an IIS box out here, we're going to implement the right rules to make sure you're protected. And 2 hours down the road, someone's attacking it with something that it's vulnerable to. We're going to identify that as an impact level 1. Hopefully you've got it in block mode, so IPS, so that attack isn't going to work, but they would have been successful if you didn't. As opposed to those impact level 2s and 3s, very similar to that other example I gave, that IIS buffer overflow attack targeting an Apache server. It's good to understand that someone is attacking you, and you can drill into it for more analysis if need be. Maybe it's a single IP, and you can block that IP. You can add that to a blacklist, but at least you can understand into it and drill into it, find out exactly what they're doing. Maybe it's just, some kid just trying all sorts of new toys that he has, new tools that he downloaded, and is targeting your website or your service externally. We also have, this is the last thing on this one page I wanted to show you, what we call indications of compromise. So here, and this is what I would spend my time at, Monday morning or the morning I come in and say, okay, who is on my network that's been basically behaving badly? I'll give you a list of IPs and tell you basically what they're doing. They're talking to known command and control servers. They're talking to botnets, or they were involved in an impact level 1 or level 2 attack. But at least give you the ability to see, what's going on with this user, drill into it for more analysis, and find out what's going on. Could be someone that downloaded malware. If you're talking to that command and control server, you want to make sure that that's protected. If it wasn't blocked initially, you want to make sure that that's blocked. We have various ways of looking at the events that happen. I just wanted to show you at least this one page. There are a couple of pages right here, what I'm calling workflow in this matter. So we're just looking at a certain period of time. Of course, we can change this time to be, not just the last hour, but we can look at it there again, last couple of days, last 6 hours. We can expand the time, we can do, a few days and pick whatever time we want to look at that. So these are the workflows, or these are the events that happened over time. As I mentioned before, the high priority, it's good to understand that it might be a high priority attack. But to me, it was needing to know what impact flag, what those events were. And here again, we can switch that workflow because we have all that data there. We give you the ability to change the way it looks and how you want to view it. We'll give you certain workflows by default. Of course, you can always create your own. I want to change this workflow to look at this by impact and priority. So now I can see those impact level ones as well as the inline result. The first thing that comes to, which alerts me, is inline result, that little down arrow, these are blocked. These impact level ones, these are the ones that I'm most vulnerable to. They weren't blocked. So this is something that I'm going to want to investigate a little bit. So give you the ability to see the count. You can drill into it for more analysis. Find out, what servers were involved in this or what users were involved in this. Give you the ability to understand that. And we're also talking about, we're looking at the files within the environment. We're looking at those files, and if you've got an advanced malware protection feature within that environment, we're looking at those files regardless of what it is. If it's a known malware, if it's a known bad file, known good file, or what we call that neutral file, so that unknown file. Excuse the background noise. I'm kind of in a place where we really can't get away from. But in this case, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So we're able to see, that malware file that came in. Of course, there again, like I said, if this were to change from that neutral file to that unknown file to known malware, we're going to alert you to tell you where it is. In this case, we're going to see that first place where it came in, give that date and timestamp, tell you the first IP address where it came in at, the last place it was seen. You can scroll through it. I think I've only had this demo running for a little while. You can scroll through it and you can see over time how it moved from user to user. Because this is our demo where we aren't blocking it, typically you'd want to see one of these and block it on the network and make sure that it doesn't go from user to user. You can hover over this and see how that file was sent from user A to user B and how it proceeds to get across the network. But there again, like I said, if you have it on the network, if you've got the network ability or the endpoint, you can still block it on either. Also, we're logging pretty much everything. So we're looking at these hosts. We want to drill into it and get more information on that host. You can see, because we're working with Active Directory, not only the operating systems, but we're also looking at the user history. So the date and timestamp of the user that was logged into that sensor or that server at that time. Give you the ability to see how many different malwares that this one IP or this one host has downloaded. So you can see all of those and see what they were doing. As well as because, as I mentioned before, the vulnerabilities. Because we see that operating system, we see those applications that are running on that endpoint, we know what they're vulnerable to. This doesn't necessarily mean that these were being targeted or being used by any attack, but at least we understand what vulnerabilities are out there, so we can recommend the right rules to put in place. When I say recommend the right rules, when we look at policies, we look at an intrusion policy. In this case, we're seeing, in this environment, we've got 12,152 hosts. Of that, of course, it's various operating systems, various applications. We're going to recommend the right rules to put in place and make sure that those are fully protected. And of course, if someone else were to plug in, let's say you were in all Windows environment, someone plugged in a Linux appliance, you didn't have those rules initially turned on. We're going to see as soon as one packet goes through with, hey, see a different server out here, here's some information. The more traffic goes through, the more we're going to be able to understand, not just the operating system, but those applications. And we'll recommend what we call FireSet recommendations, those rules to put in place. In this case, it's recommending because most of them are already set up to put it in block mode. We're going to recommend that you enable 4,500 or 4,051 rules to just generate events. We're going to say, of these rules that we already have turned on, over 8,000 of them, we're going to recommend you turn 4,089 of these, just disable them. Don't simply have these on because we don't see this operating system. We don't see these applications. There's no sense in running these. Basically, these could potentially create a false negative or a false positive. One other thing, not only are we going to recommend rules, but of course, you can still enable whichever rules you want on. We're going to recommend certain rules, but if you want to enable some other things, I'm going to use this as an example. Let's see, credit. Of course, this isn't really an attack. Let's do a search for credit. I know this is out there. It's coming back with two results. Sensitive data. And I use this on a fairly regular basis. Where I used to work, if people are going to bad sites or people are sending credit card numbers through email, I wanted to be, wanted to be alerted, or just so I can educate them. Probably shouldn't be sending your credit card number, through email, through something that, or a bad website for that matter. But give you the ability to see that, and I call this a poor man's DLP. But still, we have the ability to look at for good credit card numbers that are going through a network in clear text, as well as social security numbers and things like that. So it's really not an attack type, but at least give you the ability to, as you see the traffic, we may as well look at that. So that's a real quick overview of our ability on the network side. So not only to see those next-gen IPS features, but also the next-gen firewall with the application control. Your Facebook games and so on, but as well as those advanced malware. If we see malware going across your network, be able to block it, be able to alert you where it is. We also have the endpoint product. A little bit different interface, and of course you can still get to it from one of the tabs up here. We call this Fire App, and this is our advanced malware protection feature for the endpoint. But we have, hold on, there we go. We have what we call, the interface for this is not hardware-based, or it could be if you want something local instead of sending everything to the cloud. But typically we sell this. It works in conjunction with our network as well if you want to, but it doesn't necessarily have to. So if you've got users that are, you don't have one location, they aren't all going through the one, the one choke point, basically one egress location. If they're dispersed, if they're working from home, if they, connect to Starbucks. If you want to make sure that they're fully protected from malware, this is a great product. I'm going to give you a real brief overview of the dashboard for this, what some management would be able to use. When we're looking at this is the front page. So on the far right, this is our ability to see your users and who they're talking to. So if they're talking to those known bad sites, those known command and control servers, we're going to list those out for you. We give you the ability to take action on that if need be. The middle section here, these are just basically known malware that we see within your network, we see within your environment, your endpoints. So it doesn't have to be within the enterprise itself. But like I said, if they're at home, they're connected to Starbucks. See how many bad malware pieces are out there. And one thing that I really want to show you is what we call indication of compromise. We have that on the network side as well. Give you the ability to see, basically who's the one who's being the troublemaker today, even unbeknownst to them. Maybe they downloaded some malware that they didn't know about. So if they got the endpoint product, I'm going to jump into what we call file trajectory for indication of compromise. And I'm going to use this as an example. If this was a 0-day, and actually this is why I'm using this as the example, because we had a new customer before Z-Access was even known. They saw some things what we considered, or we called an indication of compromise. I'm going to zoom in here again. This is a product that is on the endpoint, and we work with pretty much any Windows flavor. We work on Android, we work on Mac OS, and I think come September you'll see it work on Linux versions as well. But every time we see a file, something that's created, copied, moved, executed, and so on, all those are being logged to our cloud environment, and actually to your cloud environment. So you would have basically your piece of the pie of that cloud. So you can see what each user is doing. So in this case, when we color code these as well, so you see green, that's a known good file, red, known bad, black, it could be either that unknown file or it's being used, it's vulnerable and it's being used by something. And this is where the indication of compromise would come into play. I'm going to scroll through. Here again, this is where you're able to, as well, as long as you have that endpoint product on there, what we call a connector, because the heavy work is actually being done in the cloud and not on the endpoint itself. we can scroll through here and see what happened over time. And then you see that highlighted yellow. I'm going to scroll through a little bit more. Any one of these that's highlighted in yellow, that's where we consider that an indication of compromise. So if this one file that's highlighted red, I can click on that. I can get my cursor over there. I'm running on a Mac and I'm having a problem. There we go. Oh, had there for a second. But I can drill into it and find out more about that. So initially this file was an unknown, so we didn't know exactly what this file was, but we can drill into it for file analysis. But really what I want to focus on is this yellow mark, or this yellow section here. This is what we call that indication of compromise. So this is where we see, java.exe, something's happening there. You see those little arrows, java.exe. Basically, it created an executable. And this is the first flag for us, because you never want to have java.exe create an executable within an endpoint. And you can see it did it a few times. And then a little bit later, basically it moved that file. Java moved that file. And here it tried to execute it. So these are key points, indication of compromises, IOCs that you'll hear that being called, that, you want to be aware of. This is something that shouldn't happen. Java.exe should never be doing that. So you want to be aware of that something's going on. And you can hover over each one of these, click on these, find out exactly what that zero access is doing. Basically going out to the internet, finding out where it's located, finding the closest command and control server, and we're going to be able to show you all that as well. That was, I think, a key feature within our ability to understand not only malware, but as well as we see, because we're looking at your traffic and looking at everything that's happening on that endpoint, give you the ability to go back in time to understand what happened on this endpoint and give you the ability to block it and to remediate as necessary. That was a real quick overview we have for our advanced malware protection and as well as our network side. So if there are any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer. Blair?
Yeah, I haven't seen any questions come through. We'll leave the line open for a couple more minutes if you guys have any questions to go ahead and submit them in the Q&A panel, and Bill will do his best to answer.
Yeah, I did a real high overview of actually both of those products. So if you had any questions you wanted me to drill into it for more information, I'd be more than happy to do that.
I'm not seeing any come through. So I think we'll go ahead and close things out. Thanks very much, everybody, for joining us today. I hope you found the content valuable. And if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, Blair Hanna, at bhanna@netrixllc.com. It's the same address you would have received the invitations and confirmations from. Yeah, so thanks again. Hope you all have a great day. Thanks very much, Bill and Michael.
Thanks, Blair. Thanks, Mike.
Take care, everybody.
Have a good day.